we've seen so far. Let's see who gets to have the first play here.
Wizard.
Yes.
Draw face.
Oh,
Face.
it looks like Juan gets to take the lead.
Log to a bonfire.
That's a strong start. We get to lead with Bonfire here.
Definitely helps that he doesn't have to just stare down all the branded plays piece by piece. He can actually get started. And knowing that there's Bystials in the deck list, it's not going to help that much that there's probably only fires in the graveyard until we're further in the combo.
Now, I know Juan last night, once he got his deck list, he studied Andrade's list to know exactly what he can do to counter it. And he knows what he has to play around as far as turn 1 goes. There's no Droll and Lockbird on Andrade's main deck. And there's really no form of interruption as far as monster interruptions from the hand to even worry about. It's mostly those powerful spells trying to break the board. The Triple Tactics Thrust, Triple Tactics Talents, Super Polymerization. So he's just trying to make the board as resistant as possible while still focusing on getting those interruptions to negate Andrade's monster effects.
Absolutely, and it's going to be really interesting going into the next game because we do know those deck lists. Thinking about the branded strategy is just so spell dependent, so if we see those anti-spell fragrances come out, it might be very difficult. But looks like we're going to go ahead and send our monsters to the graveyard to grab
Oak.
Yep,
Oak.
there is the Oak. Oak is able to summon back the Snake Eye Ash, and the Poplar is going to be able to put itself back in the Spell and Trap zone.
Thick Oak.
Pretty standard for pure Snake Eye here. Oak is now going to be able to send that Poplar and as well as itself to summon another Snake Eye monster from the deck. Likely going to be that Flameburst Dragon.
Think.
Certainly need to see the monsters again over and over again, but nuancedly different plays here from a Fire King strategy, right? Just trying to figure out how to get into the duel. Taking a moment to think here, not sure what the next play is. Obviously, you want to keep up a reasonable pace of play.
Yeah, so normally you would have this play streamlined. You know exactly where you're going. But typically, the Snake Eye field has a lot of interruptions that are just monster removal, which is not good against Branded, right? And this is where you're going to start seeing those adaptations come into play.
No, certainly many of those branded monsters don't even stay on the field that long, usually being shuffled off to be fused for something else. So you really are going to have to just do something different as we see the IP Masquerena made and bring out the Poplar back to the field.
Yep, the Flamebird is going to be able to summon back the Oak as well as the Poplar. And now he's debating what to go into next. Still only having played one card in his hand. He still has the spell added from Poplar. I missed if it was original or if it was Temple. I don't think it's Temple because he would have used it by now.
I believe it was the original Sinful Spoils, but looks like we're linking off 2 monsters now to make the Monster of the Hour, the Promethean Princess, Bestower of Flames.
Target Flamberge.
And the Prince is going to bring back that Flamebird Dragon, and now Flamebird is going to be putting back that IP Masquerena to be summoned on the following turn.
Did I catch that right? Was that a Starlight Rare? And a Quarter Century Secret Rare version of that amazing original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye?
I believe everything has been Quarter Century just to match. So Quarter Century IP Masquerena just to keep the flow.
Oh, that's right. They do have those now. It's just so neat to see. These are duelists that have obviously been preparing as hard as they can, but they love their deck just as much as they love their duels.
All right, so now we finally got access to that Jet Synchron here. A little late in the game, but you know when you don't have to play around Nibiru.
It does help when you absolutely know that there's no Nibiru coming, right? You can look to the sky and there is no comet coming your way.
It's like 2018 all over again.
Think here.
The good old days before counting to 5 summons.
I wouldn't consider 2018 the best years of Yu-Gi-Oh, but
Take a look at Jet Synchron, though, of course, a powerful monster because of its stat line, right? It's a fire attribute monster. It's level 1. It does have the ability to come back from the graveyard, too, so great recursive abilities.
Oh, this is very surprising. I wonder if he drew the Wanted right now off of the Jet Synchron, because usually the Diabellstar would have come down a long time ago to set up the Borrowed Savage Dragon a lot earlier, but now you still have access to it. The Jet Synchron will still be able to summon itself back from the graveyard. But this is going to be a little bit more costly. He's going to have to give up 2 cards in hand here. Well, at least you get 1 back from the Wanted, being able to put back the original.
You do. Diabellstar is great in resource management-based decks. And it's interesting, too, I think this might be the first time in the tournament we've seen both the Formula Synchron and the IP Masquerena on the field, giving a lot of flexibility in 2 different directions.
Yep, the Diabellstar is going to be able to set another copy of Wanted. If it ever came up, you were able to use it to block a Dark going after, but I don't think Andre's going to be Link summoning anytime soon.
Probably not. Fusion and Fusion Services in the Bystial branded strategy.
Jet.
Jet is going to give up the Nibiru, known that is going to be one of the weaker cards in this matchup.
Absolutely. Certainly wants to keep his own monsters on the board, and just discarding it lets him bring back that Jet Synchron. It's immediately going to go to the graveyard and be banished.
Savage.
There's the Savage as well, going to be able to put back that Link Rebo just as a material here. The one interruption is probably going to be hopefully enough here.
Your turn.
It's true that Boral Savage Dragon, if it snipes out the right card and negates its activated effect, maybe that's the end for Brandon, but let's see. Lots of spell cards.
Andres has a powerful hand from just the two cards I saw alone. It's a triple tactics thrust as well as a super polymerization drawn for turn.
Certainly will get it done here, but Andre's thinking about what he might want to do after Juan passes priority there.
Do you think there... Okay, we can actually take a look here at what super polymerization targets would be applicable to this scenario. Just taking a look at it, we have your typical Mud Dragon, we have your Dragostapelia. No, surprisingly, no Garura.
Garura certainly would have been strong. Right now we're taking a look at, I believe that's...
She have no effect on someone.
Blazing Cartesia, if I can see that right?
Yep, it looks like we're not going to see a standby phase or a draw phase super polymerization, so we're going to have to play into the field a little bit here.
Normal summon is fine.
Juan fine with the normal summon, but waiting to see if that effect will be activated, so he may negate it with Boral Savage Dragon.
Now we're just going to go ahead and use that super polymerization, which makes a lot of sense here. You're able to fuse with the Cartesia and a Dark Monster, go straight into Grand Guignol.
Just shows you how powerful super polymerization is, even if it's not in a U-Bell deck, right? You don't need to search it if you can just draw it off the top.
Grand Guignol going to be able to trigger here on summon.
What does he do? If you card vision, you can send one level monster from your deck.
I believe it's sending a light or light or dark level 6 monster from deck or extra deck.
Certainly there's plenty of level 6 dark monsters in a Bystial deck. Taking a moment to think, they're obviously super polymerization, a historically powerful card, but now that it's done its job, we're going to turn our attention to the field, and wow, Forbidden Chalice showing up again.
I will do...
Chalice on the Grand Guignol, trying to limit Andres' resources. There's already 3 cards used in this instance, only 3 cards left in Andres' hand to work with, and you do have access to summon out that IP Masquerena with the effect of the Flamebridge now, as well as chaining the Formula Synchron to make a Baron.
Certainly going to be relying on that Baron de Fleur in order to make sure you can negate those spell cards. Obviously, it'll be powerful too later if you're able to destroy something too, but there they go. Going to Formula Synchron. Little Axel Synchro action for our anime fans. And again, a powerful level 10 monster that's just legendary in its own right.
So now we are able to trigger the Flamebridge, summon back 2 of those Snake Eye monsters from the graveyard. Going to be able to summon Ash and Oak. Oak is going to be able to trigger to summon or add back one of the other level 1 fires, perhaps the Jet Synchron that's banished. And Ash is just going to get another body here, but maybe a Poplar or another Ash for the following turn. At this point, what do you think Juan needs to prioritize? He needs to hold the Baron for potentially the Brand Fusion, or maybe he knows to just hold it specifically for a Talon's card, and then he can use the IP Masquerena along with those 3 materials that he put on the field to make an Appaloosa with 4 interrupts.
I feel like that's probably the play line. Obviously, if you use up your Baron de Fleur's negation effect too soon, obviously they're going to say, oh, hey, you activated a monster effect. Don't mind if I do. I'm going to use this triple tactics thrust to grab a triple tactics talent and then grab your monster and then use its effects and maybe even get rid of it too. So yes, I do think that the Appaloosa is probably one of the strongest cards here. And there we see the triple tactics thrust. It's time to go into the deck and maybe grab a powerful card.
I think you always let thrust go and you try to stop the card that he gets with it, because you know he's not going to be adding a Dark Ruler no more.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things where thrust, you can kind of like spot out, okay, maybe I need a little bit more information here. And it's not necessarily the information about what's in the decks because we have those deck lists. It's about what your opponent is going to try to grab. What are they prioritizing as their answer to this stellar field that Juan has put up?
At the very minimum, if you do try to negate this thrust and he has a second copy, then he can just get a different card than he was originally intending to. Because
definitely changes things.
Oh, I mean, Ash Blossom makes it so easy.
Certainly don't have to waste Baron de Fleur's effect if you got Ash Blossom for that context situational thing. You would be grabbing a card from the deck, and that would be among the things that Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring can stop. But looks like there's the Branded Fusion. Immediately Baron de Fleur saying no to that.
We're still in main phase. In main phase, I will try to activate IP Masquerena.
Okay, opting to not prioritize the Appaloosa at this point, just simply because you know Andres is limited in cards. Maybe now an SP Little Knight can get the job done.
There is the possibility that maybe there's mind games afoot, right? Maybe Andres knew that by trying to enter the battle phase, Juan would try to keep it in the main phase and use up this monster.
But I think at this point, when Branded Fusion is gone, the only thing that can do anything with only one card left in Andrade's hand is another Branded Fusion, right?
Certainly. We definitely have access to 3. This is not Master Duel, but we are going to say goodbye to Grenwignall for now via SP Little Knights effect.
All right, it looks like we are going to be setting a card here. Unfortunately, not able to activate another card to be able to use that Little Knight to get rid of the Baron de Fleur, as well as itself just to reset it so that you can at least try to have an interruption for that last card. Now we're going to use the Wanted that we knew was set off of the Day of All-Star before. Going to be able to add back either from the graveyard or just add another copy from the deck of Day of All-Star, the Black Witch.
They're certainly in a strong position here. Certainly there's a lot of room on the clock left, so there's no reason to maybe not get that information. You want to hang in this duel until, but it's not over yet, so perhaps Andrade can stage a comeback with that face-down card.
I believe the best card it could be is Fusion Duplication, which I think it might be, because I did see a trap card in Andrade's hand. But even then, it doesn't go too far. It's just a Mirror Jade at this point.
Mirror Jade is certainly a powerful monster, but with that full field and cards in the hand, Juan may be able to rebuild a board even if something bad happened.
Yeah, a lone Mirror Jade will likely not be the answer in this position. We do have access to Little Knight as well, which would make this somewhat difficult because if you have to go into Albion and Little Knight banishes the Albion, would you have the materials to even make Mirror Jade?
Well, it depends on what you want to do with it, but still, we are seeing him go ahead and flip over the Fusion deployment. Or duplication, excuse me, so he's going to be copying that effect.
Sending the Albaz, of course, the one thing that has to happen with the Branded Fusion.
Always great to celebrate 25 years of Yu-Gi-Oh! History with one of the strongest cards ever printed, Magical Scientist, depicted on that Fusion duplication.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to see that card again.
Probably not. We've gotten even better Fusion monsters since then. Catapult Turtle is going to have to stand at rest. Speaking of stand at rest, we're going to go ahead and put that card away. Andres is going to take a look at his extra deck. Lots of different options here, but has to go into something.
So, assuming that Little Knight would activate into the Albion here, what would you still be able to make?
Oof. So, we've got various fusion materials in the graveyard, so we'd have to do a little math here. He is going to bring out the Albion. I guess we'll find out that answer right now.
I think the only 3 monsters available are Blazing Cartesia, the Fallen of Albaz, and now that Lubellion, right?
Believe so. We haven't seen too much more than that. It hasn't been a great turn if you're a Branded fan.
Let me check. Quick.
Now, of course, the way that our Albion works, it can fuse with materials from the hand, field, and/or graveyard.
I imagine if you're activating Little Knight, I feel like you are going to target the Albion, of course, but maybe you target your own Baron and just give yourself the link material, but it seems like that will not be the case here. Because, I mean, at this point, you do still have access to Princess Engrave as well, right? He's going to be summoning a monster. Princess is going to be immediately able to counter it.
It's one of those things, again, where the deck lists don't do all the work. You still have to keep track of all the points of interaction. But we are seeing the Sanctifier.
See, this one makes a lot of sense because that's the one that can't be targeted by monster effects, right?
Absolutely. Taking a quick look at it ourselves. Again, it's such a cool monster, and I've always loved its other effect to be able to tribute 4 monsters, 2 from the extra monster zone and 2 from the center, because it's almost like a portal that he's erupting out of. But taking a look at the card, probably the most important effect that we usually see out of it is bringing out that gimmick puppet Nightmare, a nightmare for the opponent.
So it special summons a monster to your opponent's side of the field, special summons a monster to your side of the field as well?
That's correct, that's correct. And usually you give them the one that says, hey, you don't get to play your deck the way you want.
Yeah, not going to be generating a whole lot of value right now, especially with Albaz not having a card in hand to discard to attempt to fuse with your opponent's cards. I don't think there is a single way to generate another card in hand at this point. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little difficult to go ahead and clear the Albion here. You're likely going to have to go into Zelantis play and summon it back in face-down defense position.
Probably the only way to get out of here. We've seen how great World Sea Dragon Zelantis has been, right? We saw certainly some great Jesse Cotton play where he was able to get it. A monster right in front of that relinquished Anima, but let's see if we're going back to the ocean.
It looks like we're in standby phase and using Baron's effect to summon a monster in graveyard. Just to summon back the Savage Dragon. He's probably going to try to re-summon the Baron at some point, but I'm not sure how he's going to efficiently get back to Formula. Or he might just not have to summon Formula again, just go with that Jet Synchron immediately with the monsters already on the field.
Now the math's certainly there. 8 + 1 + 1 is 10.
Just feels bad to not get an additional draw when you can.
True, true. He certainly could have recycled that Baron de Fleur, but it just seemed like it wasn't part of his game plan. Maybe he wanted to save those resources or wait to see what his options were next turn. And now we've got 4 Snake Eye monsters on the field, so the sky's the limit.
She's going to be able to access either Temple or the original here. Going to opt for the Temple. Temple's going to be able to let him put back a Snake Eye monster from pretty much anywhere.
Unfortunately, Jet Synchron may be a level 1 fire, but it's not going back to the graveyard via that Snake Eye field spell. Divine Temple's good, but it's not that incredible.
Opting to just go for the Flame Bridge again, it seems. Yeah, now you can just start climbing.
And what an extra deck it is. Again, yes, there's one monster on the field, but it is a very powerful one. So he is going to have to stare down that Sanctifier and try to find a solution right now.
I mean, I think it is very simple as just going into Zelantis and activating the effect. He just needs to get all the way there.
Well, he's certainly got the materials for it, that's for sure. But we've also seen that just jumping right into the wrong monster could cost you the duel. And at this stage of play, you want to be as careful as you can while still maintaining that reasonable pace.
All right, looks like we're going to be using Link Rebo to tribute off one of those Snake Eye Ashes on the field. And
oh, there it is.
4. Oh, I see. He wanted to make an Appaloosa, but he needed to have all different names. So that is a 3,200 attack Appaloosa here. That's a very simple way of clearing the Sanctifier, just in case if he couldn't find the answer to just finding game this point, this is going to be at least 4 interruptions into Andres' 0 cards.
And that certainly helps a lot. Obviously, there are powerful spells, but the spells lead to monsters with effects, and Appaloosa is ready to say no.
All right, so here's the Diabell Star now. We are going to be able to set a Sinful Spoils, as well as using Flame Bridge to summon back 2 monsters. And keep in mind, they will all be boosted by the 1100 from the field spot, and that should be enough.
That's enough. I'm starting to play too, so let's go and pick up our cards and find out what's next.
Okay, those 2 copies of a card that would definitely instill terror into Juan. That is Mistaken Arrest. Mistaken Arrest is a card very similar to Mistake itself. It's a quick play spell. For that turn, as well as the following turn, neither player is able to add cards from their deck to their hand.
Exactly. Some shade of Droll and Lockbird there. However, it doesn't necessarily have the same restrictions. It's a spell card, so you're not worried about running into anything that would punish you for activating monster effects. And speaking of which, seeing Albion the Shrouded Dragon go into the bottom of the deck there to get our Albaz to the graveyard.
Cycle itself really similar to an Upstart Goblin, but yeah, still putting one of those key pieces in the graveyard. In this case, it would be the Albaz, but it could be any card that mentions Fallen of Albaz.
Absolutely. It's just one of those incredible things. The deck has such great synergy with different archetypes, really interestingly designed. But it seems like the first card we're going to come out, maybe not.
It's going to be a special summon of Blazing Cartesia because Albaz is in the graveyard.
So it might be time to go ahead and start the Fusion Fund. Juan has a great poker face there, not telegraphing that he's ready to activate any card, just keeping his hands across the table and staring down Andres as he lays down his next spell.
All right, that's a Brandon in High Spirits.
You reveal its cost, or is
it does not reveal its cost, but at resolution you are able to reveal a monster in your hand and then send a monster with the same type from your extract to the graveyard. And if you do, you can send the monster from your hand to the graveyard to add a card that mentions Fall of Albaz.
Doing super great there. And it's great to see Edge Imp Chain. Obviously, that's another great fusion strategy, and we might be seeing...
So we're going to be revealing the Masquerade here.
So Fin 25.
To add the Guiding Quem.
And then you can add what?
Waiting to see the Frightful Patchwork, I believe.
Yeah, Jim Chain, when it's sent from the field or hand to the graveyard, not from the deck, keep that in mind, you will be able to add a Frightful Patchwork from your deck to your hand.
It's good, but it's not that good. But man, such a powerful card. And Fight for Patchwork certainly showing up very early in these heavy fusion-based decks once we finally got in the trading card game. Grabbing another Edge Imp Chain to basically start that loop again in the future.
Yeah, Andres is very excited to not have been hit with Droll and Lockbird in this position. He'd had a lot of cards that needed to be added from deck to hand.
Well, Juan definitely runs the Droll and Lockbird, but just didn't seem to see it this time. His poker face is not that good. I don't think he'd be holding on to Droll and Lockbird this long.
Okay.
Taking a look at the Guiding Quem.
Guiding Quem on summon is able to send another monster from, or another card rather, from deck to graveyard. Very similar to all the other cards that have been played so far, the Albion as well as the Brandon High Spirits. You really want to just load up the grave with these different pieces.
Well, this inspires some of the branded players at home. Again, this deck is just incredible in any form of the game, whether it's in the TCG or in Master Duel.
The Cartesia now activates effect, able to fuse with the Edgem chain. And there's that Grand Guiguan again.
Might be time to send a level 6 lighter dark monster. Taking a quick look at the grave here.
And because a monster was sent, or sorry, left the extra deck, Guiding Quem will be able to trigger as well on the field to special summon a monster that's either Fallen of Albaz or mentions Fallen of Albaz from the graveyard.
Definitely a tight-knit circle in the war between Dogmatica and Fallen of Albaz. Lots of great cards that cross over between them. But we're going back in the deck, and let's see who we send.
There's going to be that Bystial Serenade. This can get you access, again, to any card that mentions Fallen of Albaz. So you're able to send potentially a Branded Fusion, or even just a Bystial Rebellion. Yep, there's the Branded Fusion.
And it's just wild how this deck continues to do so well. I mean, it's been years that we've been seeing Albaz's storyline play out, and the gorgeous animation that we just had playing earlier in the stream, but this is no anime. This is the real deal, and we are activating Branded Fusion.
Yeah, how many? You didn't open the Branded Fusion, but after several interactions that just put every single card from your deck to the graveyard, you are able to add it essentially from your deck this way, not just by summoning an Albert.
To a degree, your deck almost feels like a second extra deck, right? It's not quite a hand. You don't have access to all of it, but you're constantly going into it and constantly getting stuff done.
It looks like the Branded Fusion is resolving. There was no slow roll Ash Blossom from Juan here.
Players have been doing great in not activating those cards immediately, right? Don't just want to telegraph, oh, this was all I had. Here's the Ash Blossom. They've been holding off and using them at the exact right time to stop that play that would stop them. But it looks like we're going to have another Fallen of Albaz going to the graveyard, and
let's see whether it's going to be light or dark. Andres was counting here. There is the Gimmick Puppet. Andres counting the amount of summons he's made. We saw a little bit ago. He might be still scared of the Nibiru's that we did see from Juan Game 1. Likely to be sided out, but not necessarily.
It is wholly possible that this duel may rest on that Gimmick Puppet Nightmare in the graveyard. But for now, let's go to our next Fusion Summon.
Yep, going to be discarding that Polymerization that we knew Andres had from the patchwork here. So still 2 unknown cards at this point in his hand.
Branded Fusion, just an incredible card, really keeping things into the duel. It's one of those reasons why this deck is so strong, is because you're sending these monsters from the deck to the graveyard again, basically having access to every card in your deck effectively.
All right, it looks like we're going to be using Albaz as well as the Masquerade.
All right, returning our Fallen of Albaz
into...
Think about that, Albion. But looks like it's Mirror Jade.
All right, so this is...
It was all of us plus...
nothing to indicate the lock so far, but of course Mirror Jade will always be able to send an Albion to the graveyard, get you access to Brandon in red. Oh, that could just be a Brandon red set already.
So if you're Juan and you're staring all this down on the Snake Eye side, are you ready to jump in the duel, or are you just thinking about Game 3?
I mean, you just have to have an answer. If you have an answer with the Foolish Return into this position, then you're set. If you don't, then yeah, we got to go into Game 3.
What's wild about the Foolish Return is it is a quick play spell card, so if there were any shenanigans, you could activate that from your hand in response to the Sanctifier's effect.
Oh, he does have Call by the Grave, though. That, I think, will serve a similar role.
One card in hand.
So Andres committing most of his cards to the board, or the graveyard, only has 1 card left in hand.
If we talk about interruptions that are available here, there's actually quite a few. The Blazing Cartesia has a quick effect to fuse in the main phase. Mirror Jade obviously does what Mirror Jade does, being able to send a monster from your extra deck, a fusion monster from your extra deck that mentions Albaz to banish any monster on the field. Of course, I did forget to mention the Mistaken Rest. Oh, yeah, I knew about that. There's 2 of those sitting in his hand.
Such a great card for sure. Poor little Sengen and all of his adventures. Again, taking a look at the card. It's just so insane. Again, until the end of your next turn after this card resolves, neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand except by drawing them.
Unfortunate lead with the Poplar there, cutting it off immediately. But Pure Snake Eye is able to get away without having to get access to the deck too much as far as searching goes. But now we have to deal with the Blazing Cartesia. We also have to deal with the Guiding Quem because a monster has left the extra deck, and that's just the link rib of being summoned. You are able to summon a monster from your graveyard that mentions Fallen of Albaz or is Fallen of Albaz.
And that's really what this branded deck is all about. You know, some decks are powerful because they put multiple monsters on the board that can just say, no, I'm going to negate your activated effects. However, this is more about overwhelming your opponent with unlimited resources. And then maybe if you're lucky, you can put that Gimmick Puppet Nightmare across the board.
Yep, I will.
We're going to be using the Call by the Grave there to go after likely that Fall in the Valbaz that's being summoned by the Quem. Which means we still have to deal with whatever Cartesia summons, which is likely going to be something along the lines of Dragos Despia. We have the Mirror Jade, and then the Grand Wignall still has an option to send itself to summon another monster.
And the Dragos Despia is hugely important right now if it is the monster that ends up on the board, because again, that's something that can put Predaplant counters on cards. And hey, sometimes negating the effects are important, but even more so when you know your opponent's playing synchro monsters, reducing their levels to 1 can just absolutely tank their access to the extra deck.
It does help Juan, though, that most of his cards are just level 1 naturally.
True, true, but hey, he might need to get a little bit bigger than that. Imagine turning that Formula Synchron back into a level 1.
1, 2, 2. 3, call.
Just clarifying this chain link here, it was slightly large.
Judge is just making sure that everything is on the up and up against some of the hardest working people in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Industry. Taking just a moment to make sure that everything we're doing is correct. Going to hand back that Rinbrum, place that back in the graveyard. And I think it's time to resolve our chain.
Rinbrum immediately being chained because Mirror Jade is cost. You are able to chain the Rinbrum here. The Mirror Jade resolving, going to be able to banish the Link Rebo.
Something on rest.
So again, not being able to add any cards from Reject Your Hand because of the Mistaken Arrest, but we have seen a lot of Snake Eye players play through Joel and Lockbird, a very similar effect, locking you out of your deck. So don't think it's the end of our trail.
Now we're activating the Cartesia, fusing the Fallen of Albaz as well as the Guiding Quem into Albion the Sanctifier.
Taking a good look at Sanctifier. Again, this is really the card that probably is the most scary when you think about it, right? Because it has access to kind of lock your opponent out of stuff, but it's also just good in its own right. But we are seeing it. I think I just saw the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. And oh, there's the Foolish Return.
Bring both, right?
So, okay, just clarifying here, does Albion the Sanctifier resolve as much as possible? If you chain Foolish Return to remove the Gimmick Puppet back into the deck, you are still... Will he still be summoning the other monster?
Well, the good news is we have our judges to answer that question, but just taking a look at the card itself, it's going to be target 2 monsters in any graveyards and special summon both monsters, 1 to each field. So if you can't special summon both, believe our judges were going to go ahead and lock him out of that Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. But again, that's why they're the judges. They're there at the desk to let our players know what's right.
That works pretty ideal for Juan here. He just wants to... I guess now he's trying to choose if he doesn't have to actually go after the lock. Yeah, you can leave the Gimmick Puppet there. You want to actually just get rid of the Quem, remove that resource. Having called by as well as the Foolish Return, he was very prepared to deal with the Gimmick block. And now, actually, that's a lot of interruptions already used. If he has a way to keep playing here, he might be able to run away with it.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the end of our duel right here and there, and it's strange to think about it, right? You're looking at Andrade's field, and you see all these powerful fusion monsters, such high attacks, but once they've used up all their effects, they're just big bodies on the field. So now Diabellstar is showing up to kind of start this combo off.
And getting rid of another Diabellstar, that is perfect here. You're going to be able to set that original Simple Spell that's at the top of the deck. I imagine that's what you're going for, not going for the Temple, unless you already have another copy of original in your hand.
Shows you what makes Diabellstar so strong. She's not adding that card to the hand. She's setting it on the field. So the Mistaken Arrest has nothing to say about that.
Yep, now you can use the original to send that Poplar from field to the grave. Go ahead and summon a copy of Snake Eye Oak.
I'll set this. You can
yeah, just to clarify what the Grand Wignall can do here. I suppose we should do that as well. Just see what options are still available for Andres.
Well, there's not too much based on what we're seeing here.
Original. Sending us Gust.
Juan has access to Snake Eye Oak. Snake Eye Oak bring back the Poplar, going to be able to use its effect to summon Flame Verge out from the deck, going to be able to just start climbing into the extra deck. He does have access to Dark, the Dark Charmer as well. He should definitely not target the Gimmick Puppet.
Certainly don't want to see that monster on your field accidentally by bringing it out yourself.
Dogmatica from deck or Despia from extra deck.
Yep, so this can actually bring back the Guiding Quem.
Oh, no, we're picking up the extra deck.
All right, so we can summon a Despian monster here. That is going to be Coritis. Coritis can make the monsters go to 0. But again, we bring up this position. The perfect counter to this card is World Sea Dragon Zelantis.
It is, it is.
From your deck? One here.
just about have the materials on the board for such a World Sea Dragon Zealantis.
Thinking then, right?
The World Sea Dragon will be able to reset all of his monster stats because they're going to be re-special summoned to the field. The Coritis, because it wasn't properly summoned, would not be able to be summoned back, but that would trigger its effect to be able to summon a monster from the deck. But since Quem is already used, I believe its effects are once per turn. You can summon an Albert, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a concern. I think Juan has access to a game shot.
This cannot be
I believe so. Juan may be our semifinalist that advances in the next round. Again, all these cards are just bodies, but again, Despia and Coritis, one of the earlier Despian cards from the whole branded Dogmatica War. But again, it's still powerful, right? You still see it in Master Duel 2, just reducing all those monsters that are not strong fusions down to 0 attack. It's great effects still to this day.
Now, there isn't a copy of Branded Opening in the graveyard, so maybe we just use the Flamebird to go after the Coritis, just to not even deal with it summoning another monster from the deck. Because everything else, I mean, even the Mirror Jade being destroyed would destroy every monster in Juan's graveyard. But it wouldn't matter if he never has to reach the end phase.
If you don't reach the end phase because you win before it, it is not a problem. So let's go ahead and perform what appears to be another Link Summon.
Yep, we are pushing back that Coritis here. And now he just has to find his way through his combo into the Promethean Princess, into the World Sea Dragon, into... Or sorry, skipping a step, into the Raging Phoenix, into the World Sea Dragon, and then using World Sea Dragon's effect along with another fire monster, and then he'll be right underway. And that is a lot of damage.
It's true that Salamangreat Raging Phoenix never looks so good when it partners up with a water monster. It's a little strange to see on the field, but it is so cool the way these duelists are putting together all these different deck types all at once. But we are going to see Snake Eye Poplar go and be summoned again. And looks like another Snake Eye from the Flamberge effect.
I'm very surprised he didn't go into the Dark Charmer, but maybe the only Dark monster in the opponent's graveyard is the Gimmick Puppet.
I mean, you want a monster, but not a monster that locks you out of keeping this game going, especially when you have finally exhausted your opponent's effects. It's time to get into this duel.
Oh, and there is a Magician's Souls as well. There has to be a Fallen of Albaz in there, right? So that's just would have been an additional body. You would have had been able to climb into Princess a little bit easier. But I guess you don't really need to if you have another playable card in your hand. Here is the Promethean Princess, going to be able to bring back likely the Flamebird Dragon, just because it's, you know, large and in charge.
Definitely is. 3,000 attack is certainly important. Again, the Sanctifier, as strong as it may be, it is only 3,000 attack. Same with the Mirror Jade. So stats actually matter.
I mean, when they're in face-down defense position, how much do their stats matter?
True, true. The Zealantis would be able to go ahead and splash them face down in the water.
Thinking here.
And the Zealantis will also still be able to destroy 2 of these monsters. Now, just to clarify, because actually, Zealantis is re-special summoning them. The Mirror Jade will no longer be summoned from the extra deck, correct?
That is correct, because it would be special summoned from the Banish pile. Well, Banishment, I should say. We have a great new name for that.
Because it says it cannot activate its effect. Per copy, so if he brings back, it's a new one.
Again, World Sea Dragon Zealantis, a card that was, I don't want to say ignored. Everyone was excited when it first came out, but no one quite figured out what was a good practical application of it. And we've seen multiple different decks showcase how powerful it is, whether it's the Fire King variant or the Snake Eye version.
Now, Juan did clarify that Mirror Jade, had it come back in face-up attack position, would be reset and would be able to use its effect again. But again, just please summon these monsters in face-down defense position.
If you're cheering for Juan, there we go. There's the face downs.
The Cartesia can be in attack mode. That's fine.
He's face up or face down. It doesn't matter.
It does to your opponent. He would love to have his cards face up.
Like, one is in attack, all of them has to be in attack?
No. It's each individual one. You can choose their position, whether it be face-up attack position or face-down defense position.
So again, just reading the effects here again. You're going to special summon as many monsters as possible that were banished by the effect of World Sea Dragon Zealantis to the owner's side of the field, face up or in face down defense position. And you can pick and choose, and that's what's making this powerful card from a few sets ago really stand out right now, because that face down has never mattered more.
This is going to be able to easily remove 3 monsters from the field, because you're going to be able to use Princess to go ahead and destroy one of them. The Raging Phoenix is going to be able to come back on, gain the stats of the monster that you destroyed on your side of the field, with the fire one, of course. And then in the battle phase, World Sea Dragon has another crazy effect for the amount of co-linked monsters you control, or just on the field, rather. You get to destroy that many cards.
And there they go.
And then, of course, he attempted to activate the Mirror Jade, would not be able to. It was special summoned from the banishment. And this is more than enough damage on the field. And Juan takes it. Juan will be moving on into the finals to face against Jesse Cotton.
What an incredible